the thing is with the rivals, right? Yeah, you can't ever go in on a battle card. Your leader swing is the most safe thing you can do in a format like this, where you can drop chomp on your leader. Your opponent has there's no cards in the game. Knowing the card pool here is key. There's no cards in the game that can negate your leader's skills for the most part. There's no arrival that can KO your leader mid battle. So knowing that's really important. Like if you're gonna go in on your opponent with a battle card, let's just say, you need to know every single card in the card pool that their colors have access to. You need to know every single card that they've used so far by looking at their warp, drop area, energy, things like that. Like, let's just say you're going all in on a double strike with Piccolo, right? Let's just say they have 1 blue energy open. You're going with a double striker for game. Let's just say they've used 4 Son Goku, Son Gohan, Defenders of Earth, which means they have no access to that card. Let's say they've been through no Senzu Beans. That means they could Senzu Bean to 5 energy and potentially SS4 Arrival and kill the battle card you're swinging with, no matter if it has barrier or anything. Like, exactly. The fact that you have to play that way, it's insane, but it also means the skill cap of Dragon Ball Super is rising like exponentially through the roof, and I'm really excited about that. It's a really, really cool thing to see. So, Danny, I mean, any thoughts on there?
Yeah, for sure. Like, accounting what energy and what cards your opponent is able to play is huge. If you say green-yellow, you should expect SS Broly.
Yep.
If you see, like you said, blue-green, you can expect the Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta Secret Rare. There's red-yellow Beerus. Every single color has some powerful rival, and all the top decks have these powerful rivals. Even aggressive decks are playing rivals. And then, I guess when we're talking about leader swings, that's part of why the reboot Gohan is like able to be successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, being able to
minimal way to interact with it. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Like, imagine if it was a battle card that said triple attack, triple strike, lose the game, but you could play it for 2 energy or something. How much worse would that be? That's obviously sounds broken. Worse. Yeah, but it's infinitely worse. Yes, exactly. A 2-drops with that effect, with no barrier, no deflect, is actually really bad if you think about it.
There are some battle cards like that, actually. I mean, they don't have triple attack and triple strike. There's like a 1-drop chilled that came out in set 9 that says like tap 3, give it triple strike, and give it like plus 6,000 for all your energy, and that's like a game-ending effect in a sense, but no protection on it, and it just dies to any and all forms of a rival. So I think that brings us to the next thing, which is tempo. A lot of what we've been talking about is tempo, right? So let's just say, for example, you do swing all in with like a Mirror Creator Absorb double strike. That used to be like the biggest game ender in the entire game.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just say you do that. You combo like, 5 cards out of your hand. For some reason, you don't combo all in, but you combo 5 cards, right? Then your opponent, all they do is they super combo Giro, and then they play Broly Arrival, pop your Mira. So in that instance, back then we would look at that as resources. So, and you should still look at it as resources. So in that sense, you've lost what? You've lost the Mira, you lost the Champa, and you lost 5 combo cards.
That's
so
7.
That's 7 cards. And then your opponent is using the super combo, which is 1 card, and then they're playing a body. So yeah, you've lost 7 cards. Your opponent's lost 1 card. But now you have to look at that in the form of tempo, because your opponent has now also produced a 25k body on top of that neg you just took. So I think tempo is making a really big splash in the way you play the game right now.
Yeah, for sure. Being efficient with your swings, like, you want people to burn their surge effect. You want them to burn a lot of combo power, but you have to do that without burning yours at the same time. Like, if you're going in for, like, back then you would try to swing like, say they're at that sweet spot, 3-2 or 4-3, like you want to bring them to that sweet number, and say you want to combo a little extra, going 35 instead. You're not allowed like to do that right now, because if say they do a rival, and you'll go mad neg, like you said, -5. You can completely lose a game off of a swing like that.
Now here's another interesting point. So I think the majority of decks talking about these rules apply. So like Surge Piccolo, Surge Goku, U7 Invoker, Jiren, Surge Broly, Janemba, all these different, generally mid-range control decks play these different cards, arrivals, counterplays. Now let's say we're talking to someone who doesn't necessarily want to play the game like this. I think that they can still play Dragon Ball Super, which is, to me, a really, really cool thing to say. Like, if you don't necessarily want to adapt in this way, if you don't want to play mid-range control, you can play Aggro. Aggro is the type of deck in this game, at least in this format right now, where you don't have to play any counterplays for the most part. I mean, you might play Focus Breakthrough to, like, answer Topo so you can actually win. But besides that, you're not playing too many arrivals. Like some builds are playing aggressive arrivals, but a lot of the black no arrivals, no counterplays in Black Boo. No one's even playing Deborah in the deck. And then Reboot Gohan. The best build I think right now is Blue Green, which isn't really playing a rival. They're just playing blue for Bean and green for Feet Kamehameha. And as these aggro decks right now, you set the pace of the game, which is really cool. Like you're basically forcing your opponent to play the defense role, and you're playing the aggressor role. Like you're trying to win the game on your terms. Your opponent either has to lose or somehow find the way to defend it. So it's really interesting because I thought going into Vegas that aggro would be much more highly represented, but we look at the graphic that Carta Magica put out, and the two most represented decks were Surge Piccolo and U7 Invoker Goku. Reboot Gohan, I believe, was the fourth most represented deck. So it was still very highly represented, but not so much, even for as oppressive as they seem to be. So what do you think the place is right now? I think control, mid-range, and aggro are all very, very viable, which I think is honestly one of the coolest things to say. But Danny, what do you think about that?
Yeah, for sure. There's so many fun decks you could try out. But I think mid-range does take it a little up. Piccolo, Surge Goku, and Invoker Goku. They feel a notch up, but obviously I do think that aggro definitely kept up. We saw that up to top 8. I think the Reboot Gohan made it to, right?
Yeah, I think it was top 8, and Black Boo too. Like I don't think anyone really expected this deck to be that good. Like I think it's pretty linear in a sense. Like it's every turn rinse repeat your Boo chain, but I mean that linearness and that potency just proved to be really powerful. Like I don't know, did you expect this deck to really do things this weekend?
Black Boo, you said?
Yeah.
I think it just draws so many cards. It can keep doing the same thing over and over, and consistency is like key with aggro, because you only have a couple turns to kill them before they stabilize.
Yep.
And consistently being able to do your game plan, your aggressive strategy is key, and that's Reboot Gohan and Boo both do that really well with their like engines that they have. Obviously the leader of Gohan will do the same thing, but the Boo deck rips through the deck really fast.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it turbos through the deck every single turn. Like you only have a hand of 5 cards, but the way you play the aggro game in Boo, you're making your opponent combo and use cards to negate and defend. So you're starting to meet them at parity, which is pretty nuts. So I think in terms of wrapping up, we can talk about where the format may go from here. And I think that's a really interesting thing to look at, because we talked about the best decks. We talked about Piccolo, U7 Invoker, and Surge Goku being the top dogs right now. I think Surge Goku and Piccolo are particularly going to be the decks to beat. So it's interesting as to where you think that those might go, because Surge Goku, if you had to ask me right on the spot right now, I think you need to look at deflect bombs in terms of beating Surge Goku. Like Gogeta 7 was a card that we saw both decks in the finals of the TOP playing. Piccolo was siding it and Surge Goku was main decking it. And it really pains me to say that card might be the next format defining card, but I don't know, maybe there's other deflect bombs in the format you can play. I mean, Danny, where do you think the format goes from here? How do you think things kind of shift up?
Yeah, we could definitely talk about the number one enemy, besides Justin Rios, obviously, but Invokers. Yeah, he's broken. Invokers is so many people. Like we kept talking Amani, how it's so hard to play against. It's like the king of permission, technically.
Yep.
You're not allowed to play anything after turn 3, and getting through that permission through ways of deflect, and the deck can still go through barrier, obviously, but you gotta at least be able to start playing some cards. If you can't even start presenting battle cards, then you're really having a hard time. But if you're at least able to present some bodies that maybe even get through Death Meme, that could definitely just Gogeta 7, amazing card against Invokers.
Yeah, that seems like the main one, because you give your opponent the random hand, they can't do anything to negate the effect, so you're basically praying they don't draw back into a negate, you're praying they don't draw back into a Death Beam, because if they don't have a hand to back up the SSB Vegeta Inspired technique, they don't really have too much they can do. Now, one other point I wanted to bring up is I was talking about this with Pat O'Neill the other day, and it seems like in this game it could be a little bit toxic when your leader is not required to attack your opponent's leader, because you see decks like Piccolo, you see decks like U7
Yep.
Surge Goku, they can play the stall game. They can either create an overwhelming board. In the case of Piccolo, they can just drop the Xeno SCR or like several Surge Broly's, not Surge Broly's, several all-out Assault Broly's. Or in the case of Invoker Goku, you can just drop Secret Rare Victory Strike at your opponent's like 6 life and just kill them outright. So, I mean, what do you think about that in terms of game mechanics? Like, do you think it's healthy for these types of stall strategies to exist? Or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it definitely doesn't feel healthy. Like, I think Piccolo, the Surge Piccolo leader, is probably way too powerful. It feels unfair. Like, how, like, just the leader, front side leader effect just feels insane. A lot of people, we talk about not awakening Piccolo, but a lot of Piccolo decks we saw succeed just bypass that by just main decking their own self awakening, so they didn't even care if you're like trying to keep them at 4 or 5 life, because if they want to start activating their surge effects, they're gonna.
Yeah.
But being able to top or bottom deck cards is so ridiculously powerful. Seeing the answers you need as fast as possible, like, I think that's a big reason why the Invoker deck is so powerful. Ripping through your deck and just seeing everything you need when you need it is a huge deal. And then Piccolo, it really should have to swing. Even the Invoker Goku leader has to swing a little bit, because you got to get
inside,
yeah, you have to put a couple extra cards in your drop. But Piccolo not having to, they could just sit there forever. Like, Super 17 crit you down to 4, which that card is nuts.
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely pretty much agree with that for the most part. I think, I hope they kind of steer away from these stally types of leaders. Like, I mean, I'm surprised they printed Cooler as a mill strategy and still required it to attack, honestly, the way they've been making cards that way. I think the format is still very, very healthy with all the different decks we see here in the top cut, but it definitely seems like the power cluster is gathering around these 3 leaders: Surge Piccolo, Surge Goku, and U7 Invoker Goku. So, wrapping up, Danny, I'm just going to give you the floor. Are there any final points you want to hit on?
Yeah, I guess one point I wanted to hit on was, like I was talking about the self-awakening in the Piccolo decks. These 1-drops are very efficient, and we talk about you're not allowed to play 3 or 4 drops anymore, pretty much.
Yeah,
but
no more digging deep.
No,
stuff like that. Yeah.
It's really bad, actually. But these 1-drops that a lot of these we saw, like a lot of the Piccolo decks in top 8, top 16, playing a ton of 1-drops, and they're using very little. We were talking about smart, controlled aggression, being very efficient with your resources, how you pressure your opponent. These 1-drops, we saw like these decks adapting with the 1-drops, how strong it is to pressure with a 1-drop crit, self-awakening yourself, and on top of the Android 18 super combo. That's what Amani and Eon Hill, I think, were talking about, how they played the 1-drop newfound power swung and then Android 18 super combo on top of it. Insane pressure, you know. And even if they did answer with like an arrival, which is a great answer, but that's not that energy efficient. Like, you honestly would feel like happy if they arrivaled into, say, a Broly to answer your newfound power. That's one of the big things I think that happened during this tournament. That's why they're so successful.
Yeah, I think the main takeaways from what we've been talking about and what this format's looking like is tempo, making your opponent play on your terms, making them expend resources to do different things, like making them arrival. Like, if they're arrivaling and you expected it or you wanted it, you're pretty much winning in that position. But I'm gonna cut it here. We're gonna wrap it up here, guys. If you enjoy this type of video, let me know in the comments below. I know it was longer, I know it was a different type of video, but I think it was pretty cool. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think. If you guys want another type of video like this, just let us know. Give us a topic. We'll talk about it. Danny, I'll let you sign off, and we'll see you guys later.
Yeah, check out Shenron's Lair. Great team. Subscribe to Joey. Super Shenron's the best. Love you guys.
Toxic. Later.